Tropical storm Gordon has formed in the Atlantic, where it's headed, and other impacts for our weekend forecast. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on a Friday. Hope you're doing well. Coming up in this video, we do now have the 7th named storm in the Atlantic hurricane season. Tropical storm Gordon has formed. We'll take a look at that. We'll look at the invest that was moving through the Leeward Islands and talk about the impacts it's bringing. We also have an area in orange here off of the east coast of the United States. Get into the weekend forecast as well. As usual, love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section what's been going on in your area, what the weather has been like. One quick personal note, I had to have some emergency dental procedure done earlier today. Feeling fine, everything's good. Still a little numb though in the mouth. So if I'm talking a little bit slower, I don't think I'm going to slur any words. It's beginning to finally wear off here. I waited until I felt good enough, but that's the reason why. So just want to let you guys know that. Let's get started with what's going on here in the broad perspective. First thing I want to talk about is actually just bring on the current temperatures here. A lot of you have mentioned in the comments section how hot it has been. It's been another pretty steamy day across the area. Daytime highs, upper 80s, lower 90s, hit a couple of mid 90s in places like Port-au-Prince, Haiti for today. Also pretty hot, but trying to get a few storms back down towards the ABC Islands. Portions of the Yucatan, Central America also reaching the mid 90s in Fahrenheit. We put in the feels like temperature. Again, this is what it really feels like on the body. And there are some heat advisories we've had for today. Those were in effect for the Bahamas for today, portions of Puerto Rico and other areas as well. Again, feels like numbers. Look at Kingston hitting 117. I mean, now you're pushing about 50 degrees Celsius when you get that hot. 110 is 43 degrees Celsius. And again, there are some areas that have hit that for today, but others have been a little bit cooler, and portions, and partly at least the reason why, is of course we've had some rain in the area. So let's start off with what's happening with our invest. This is the one we mentioned yesterday in the video. It did not develop. As a matter of fact, the Hurricane Center has it now as a 0% chance. The center of this is actually located right over the St. Kitts and Nevis area as we speak. Going to bring on the visible satellite imagery. Again, we can just clearly see that we never ended up getting a low-level center of circulation. We talked about how there was a lot of dry air in place, and although this was going to bring some passing showers and some breezy conditions, it more than likely was not going to wrap up. Now, that's exactly what we've had for today in the Leeward Islands, Anguilla, on over towards Antigua, Barbuda, St. Martin, St. Bart's, Saba, St. Eustatius, places like that. We've had some passing showers. Some of that has been on the heavier side from time to time. Others have just been in the way of some passing rain, and again, a little bit in the way of some breeze as well. Speaking of that, go back over here actually and bring on those wind gusts, and you can see that St. Bart's had an over 30-mile-an-hour wind gust from time to time, and that moisture and rain is pushing off towards the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. But if I bring on the water vapor imagery here, again, you can just clearly see that this red, which is drier air, is kind of encompassing this entire invest area, which again is not going to develop, so they'll just even let the invest area fall away here. But passing showers moving into the greater Antilles are going to be the story of the day. Now over to the U.S. and British Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, it has been a more active afternoon. First of all, some of the moisture from the Leeward Islands beginning to work its way into Anegada, Virgin Gorda, Yost Van Dyke, Roadtown area, St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix eventually as well. Across Puerto Rico, we've actually had some very healthy showers and storms for today. You can see that 30-plus-mile-an-hour wind gusts in San Juan, and we've had flood advisories for the central and the western portions of the islands from the Uti Alto area towards Mayagüez, Aguadilla as well. Let's bring on the radar out of southeast Puerto Rico right now, drop off the satellite data. Now, again, earlier in the day, a lot of this activity was located over the central portion of the island, but it's also moving off towards the west. So now, again, it's basically located right along the far western portions of the island. It will continue to work its way through and west into the Mona Passage. And eventually, this is also going to try and get into places like Punta Cana, Dominican Republic as well, where they've seen a few isolated showers and storms for today. But again, it's been exceptionally hot across Puerto Rico, so I'm sure some of our friends there don't actually mind some of this rain to cool things off a little bit. But you can clearly see here on the enhanced satellite imagery Nice blow up of thunderstorms with there is even some moisture coming back in from the south. Before we go farther west, I want to just drop down the Lesser Antilles here to talk about, again, this elongated area of rain. And we've had some scattered showers and storms for today. Not all islands have seen it, but places like Martinique, a little bit of a wind gust there. St. Lucia, we've still had at least some portions of Barbados with some rain. There continue to just be the elevated chance for some showers in this area. That's what the Department of Meteorology out of Barbados is discussing. St. Lucia passing showers, St. Vincent and the Grenadines as well. It's been quieter today in Trinidad and Tobago. Same thing for Nueva Esparta. We've gotten a little bit of rain in the ABC Islands for today, and I'm going to cross our fingers that we get some more. You can see the rain developing from the mainland and lifting up to the north, and there's that opportunity for Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao, which has had some rain earlier today, to catch more showers. If you live in these areas, let me know. I hope you're getting some of that activity. Up north again to the Dominican Republic and Haiti. It's been relatively active this afternoon, again, to help try and cool things down a little bit for us here. I'm going to put back on the wind gusts first of all. And again, nothing really popping up there. Santo Domingo, Samana, Santiago de los Caballeros, on over towards Port-au-Prince. Feels like temperatures, though, again, have pushed well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, anything at 110 is 43 degrees Celsius or higher. It's been a really rough day. These thunderstorms are welcome. Watch out for some pockets of heavy rain and some isolated flooding. We see Port-au-Prince there hit 107 or so. Puerto Plata was above 110 as well. Over to our west, my friends in Jamaica. We're starting to get some storms to try and cool things off right now. Look again, Kingston's feels like temperature 117. A few storms had developed near Kingston, Portmore, and Spanish Town, but we've really seen some nice heavy rain the last couple of hours, central, western sides of the island, like Clarendon, Manchester, St. Anne West, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, St. James, then you get over to Hanover and Westmoreland parishes as well. But it's been a pretty active afternoon. I mean, look at all the lightning strikes here. I mean, we've got 58 lightning strikes in the last 15 minutes across the island, some of those even closer to the Kingston area. So Linstead, north of Maypen and Mandeville, central portions of the island, south of Falmouth, Cambridge area, Montego Bay, Lucy, Negril, Savlamar. Again, all with good shower and storm chances, and some of this is very healthy. Again, nice blow up of thunderstorms right in the central portion of the island here over the last hour or so. Montego Bay's feels like temperature coming down because of the clouds and the rain around the area. So we've gotten some decent storms there, and again, that's all developing out of some moisture coming off of southeast Cuba. That's the same situation for our friends in the Cayman Islands. We're trying to get some showers to develop here. It's been an exceptionally hot day, at least some cloud coverage over Grand Cayman at the hour, if not even a little bit of shower activity. It has been dry. It has been hot for most of the Yucatan, Belize, and Guatemala for today. Feels like temperatures. Again, these are not air temperatures, I want to be clear, but feels like temperatures. Heat index, that's what we call it. Chechibal feels like 108 right now. Belize City, 110. It's been hot with a few storms developing on the northern sides of Honduras as well. San Pedro Sulas feels like temperature, again, running above 110 in the afternoon hours. And then a few showers and storms for Honduras, Nicaragua, portions of Costa Rica, and Panama as well. Over to our friends in the Bahamas. We've had a few isolated showers and storms develop in the area today towards Walker's Key, Freeport, and the far northern side. A couple more storms back down towards Andros. We'll bring on the radar here and take off the satellite data very quickly. Wrong button. There we go. These are slow-moving, isolated storms, but they could produce some locally heavy rainfall because they're so slow-moving right now. Located over Walker's Key, located over Grand Bahama right now. Storms developing at the hour just east of the Lukai area towards High Rock and moving off towards the east. Still relatively dry, a couple of isolated showers towards Abaco. Same thing for Andros. We're trying to get a few storms right over Nassau as well. A couple of isolated showers have developed, nothing significant. Couple of lightning strikes there, mainly on the western side of the island, perhaps a little up there towards Paradise Island as well. And again, as we go a little bit farther off towards the south across the island chain, it's been mainly dry. And again, it's been exceptionally hot. Heat advisories are actually in place right now for all of the islands. So just be cautious of that situation. Our friends in Bermuda right now are still quiet, but again, we have an area here off the east coast of the United States that could develop into a non-tropical low, and we'll talk about how that's going to impact things coming up. Thank you for liking this video. Quick, simple payback. got to pay for this procedure I had done. So let's get the likes and subscribes going. Get the memberships. A super thanks as well. And again, I appreciate all of the support for the channel. All right, so now let's talk about what's going on tropically outside of that invest. And obviously the big story is we have Tropical Storm Gordon. Gordon formed a little bit earlier today. It is a minimal tropical storm. Winds are 40 miles an hour, but we now can shave off the 7th named storm. So Helene would be the next one here of the Atlantic hurricane season. So we now have 7 named storms, 4 hurricanes, 1 major hurricane, of course, that being Beryl. So winds are 40 miles an hour, moving west at around 10. Gordon is not expected to become a big storm, okay? As a matter of fact here, down the road, it could actually weaken back to a tropical depression at least for a couple of days before redeveloping back into a tropical storm here, basically into early next week. You're talking about maximum winds in this 5-day forecast cone of 45 miles an hour. The other fantastic thing is that it's in the middle of nowhere, okay? Gordon is a couple thousand miles east of the Lesser Antilles. Notice again, by the end of this forecast cone, it begins that curve back up to the north. And at this point in time, doesn't even look to be a threat to Bermuda. I mean, obviously, I'm going to keep a very close eye on Gordon. It's decent looking at this point in time, but it's also going to be fighting some drier air as well. And just overall environmental conditions aren't expected for it to become anything big. As a matter of fact, the Hurricane Center in the discussion here earlier today talked about, look, when this thing potentially weakens into a depression, it could even just fall apart into a remnant low and may never fully redevelop again here as it gets out into this area. So this is not a system at this point in time that should impact any of our area. That's great news, but I'll always keep an eye on it. Now, we do have an area off of the east coast of the United States. It's orange now. There's a 40% chance that we could get a non-tropical low, or what we call a subtropical storm, develop just off of the Georgia, South Carolina coastline. That would then push northwest and try and go back over the Carolinas. It would just be a very wet system. There would be some gusty winds. It would obviously kick up the surf and sea conditions tremendously, and we'll look at that coming up as well, because ultimately that could be the biggest story out of this, but it could also bring some heavier rain to portions of the east coast of the United States. But again, with this not developing, it's still going to bring some heavy rain to our areas here. So we'll be monitoring that. Let's take a look at a couple of the different models. I'll start off with the GFS and go ahead and pull this out a full week. We'll obviously look at the ensemble members as well. There is something about a week out I want to make sure that I remember to mention, and we'll do that here in a minute. But obviously we'll take a look at the here and now to begin with. So there is this frontal boundary just sitting off of the east coast of the United States, and it's a west to east orientation. So Bermuda will actually get in on some of this rain. It'll actually build off towards the east, but eventually, again, we could get a non-tropical low to develop and push back into the Carolinas, and you can see that here very clearly. But it's a northwest track right back up the coastline here, but again, kicking up surf and sea conditions. So for our friends in the eastern side of the United States, could be some heavier rain, high surf and sea conditions over the next few days as this potentially develops. And again, subtropical storms do get names, so this could end up being Helene. We'll see how that plays out. Now, for our area here in the Leeward Islands and then into the Greater Antilles, again, with this not developing, this is just going to be fast-moving showers with ultimately a disturbance, nothing more than that. And so rain chances will pick up the farther west that we go, especially into the Dominican Republic and Haiti and portions of Cuba and Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as well. Before we get over to what's happening there, just a quick look at the GFS on Gordon. And again, not really holding on to the system here. It does try and kind of sneak it back up, or basically it drops into almost a broad low and then tries to reform here at the last second in about day 5, right? And you can see that then moving north and east on days 6 and 7. But this is fantastic. Let's just keep it out as a fish storm. Let's keep it very weak. Not expecting this to drive west. More than likely it will take that northerly turn. Now over here, it's going to get wetter. It's going to get sloppier. It's going to get more interesting about 6-7 days from now in the western sides of the Caribbean. This is going to be the next area to monitor in our region for potential tropical development. And again, we're at least a week away, maybe 6 days away. So I'll keep a very close eye on things, but there are signals that in the Western Caribbean overall, there'll be a lot more tropical moisture. The wind fields will be very conducive for development, meaning that there won't be wind shear, there won't be any dry air. So the Western Caribbean in days 6 to 7 and beyond will be the areas that I'll be keeping a very close eye on for the next signs of tropical development in our area. Again, on the GFS model, we can just clearly see at the end of the run here as we get towards the latter half of next week, a lot more moisture just begins to develop. I'm happy to, by the way, because we can simply do this. I'll take the GFS model a little bit farther out in time. Now, again, we don't want to put a lot of weight on this as of yet, but I'll also show you the European ensembles, which are picking up on the same signal. So letting this run now basically a full 10 days, you can see just how wet and sloppy the western side of the Caribbean over Cuba and then into the Western Atlantic, including the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, ends up getting here as we get into days 7, 8, 9, and 10. And in this area, we could have at least one potential development area, but this could be a broad system where we might have even multiple spin-ups try and occur. So it does look to be more active closer to home, starting in about 6, 7 days. All right, so I'll be monitoring that situation for you very, very closely. Back to the more current situation here. I'm going to go over to the NAM model and just make sure I've got that all looped up. And we'll talk about the weekend forecast. So this is the NAM model, and I just want to talk about the weekend forecast. Again, rain chances in a lot of our area will be very average. Not expecting anything to be extremely high, but not expecting a lot of areas to be ultimately dry as well. I mean, again, it is September. We typically see these showers and storms cropping up. Notice again here on the NAM model, we start to push some of the moisture farther off towards the west, and that'll just work its way across Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Cuba and Jamaica with decent rain chances each and every afternoon. We'll still be more isolated for the central southeast Bahamas down to the Turks and Caicos. Slightly higher chance for some rain in the northwest Bahamas. They'll be closer to, again, this kind of stalled boundary in this developing area of low pressure, and some of that moisture could spin in. Really what's going to end up happening is, as this low begins to develop, obviously over the northwest Bahamas, we're going to have a southwest wind, right? And we're going to pick up some of that moisture coming into the area. And I'll even show you that wind coming up in just a second. And actually, we'll have some rain for the Yucatan and Central America, but nothing outrageous, nothing where I think we're going to have extremely high chances here the next few days. When we swing over to this vector product, which is, again, the winds, and I just make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see for everyone, and then loop this up, again, just to kind of mention what's going to be happening up here and then how this is going to impact the Bahamas. It'll take just a second for this model to fully develop here. But again, as this system gets a little bit stronger and pulls farther up to the north, you'll see that the winds in the Bahamas will really start to turn more out of the south and southwest, and that will begin to just feed in a little bit of moisture coming in here through the remainder of the period, especially into the northwest Bahamas, right? Wind field won't be as strong, central and southeast Bahamas, at least pulling in as much moisture, but that opportunity will be there. And again, you can just clearly see, and it looks like model might be struggling just a little bit. It's still trying to load fully up here. So we'll give it a second. Let's see. Almost looks like it dropped away, didn't it? All right, there we go. I don't know why it's trying to go that far out in time. You don't have to go that far out. Let's see here. We go to the GFS. I think I only want to go out a couple of days. I think this should ultimately fix it. It might take, again, just 1 second to load up. But I think what it was doing is it was trying to load up 10 days. And that's a problem when you have this kind of a model because it's so intensive as far as what's on the map. It takes a long time to load up a full 10 days. Now that I've got it in the right time frame, you can clearly see again winds freshening up off the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and then as it spins around, we'll start to pull in a little bit more in the way of some south winds. You see that turn right there, and that should drive in a little bit more of that moisture there. Ultimately, for the rest of our area, we'll stay with obviously the easterly trades for the most part. Now this disturbance will freshen up some of the winds across the ABC Islands the next couple days, but still for the western side of the of the Caribbean into the Gulf, the wind fields will actually be relatively weak. We're looking pretty good as far as that goes. So now let's take a look at the GFS ensemble. Again, with Gordon, you're not going to see many really keep this thing going and amplify it. And again, fish storm, central Atlantic. Few of them have developing that area in orange, which again could become Helene. And then right at the end of this, and I'm gonna let this run one more time, if you look into the western sides of the Caribbean, we'll start to see a few signals for potential development by the end of next week. So this is now next Wednesday into Thursday and Friday, and you'll see a couple of areas there. Not much as of yet, but a few beginning to develop. And it's about the same situation on the European. Now, the European is a little bit more aggressive with Gordon, just keeping it together, right? Rather than having it dissipate. But again, it's a fish storm because it pulls back north and eventually northeast. So that's area 1. Area 2, a couple have this developing and moving back into the Carolinas. And then again, by the end of next week, if you look into the Western Caribbean, you'll see a few signals for some development in that area. If I was to show you days like 9, 10, and 11, there would be even more and more. But we don't want to get ahead of ourselves too far. We've got at least 6 or 7 days to be monitoring the western sides of the Caribbean. So speaking of waves and heights, man, it's going to go gangbusters across the U.S. East Coast because this low is going to not be moving much, and it's going to be an onshore wind. So we could have some beach erosion. We could have some really elevated high tides that could lead to some coastal flooding. Some could even bring some long period swells back into the Bahamas, especially the northwest Bahamas. So keep an eye out for that. You can see that wave height and direction tries to pull some of those swells back into the northwest sides of the Bahamas. But again, for the rest of the Caribbean, especially the Western Caribbean and the Gulf, until the very end of the period, things are looking good. I mean, this is this weekend, and we're going to have fairly tranquil conditions. So pretty darn good boating weather outside of what's happening along the United States East Coast. And then by the end of next week, obviously, it could potentially get a little bit more active here and something to monitor. Rainfall totals, let's take a look at those on our animated European loop over the next 7 days. Obviously, off the U.S. East Coast, it will get wet. But again, I want to be clear. Notice how this extends out to the east. So we'll have to see if some of this heavier rain could even sneak towards Bermuda. Otherwise, by the end of the period, the northwest Bahamas gets wetter. Same thing for Cuba. And then we'll start to see more moisture develop in the southwest side of the Caribbean. That could be the developing of at least a lot of tropical moisture, if not a tropical system. We will be a little bit drier overall the farther east that we go for the Lesser Antilles, all the way down to Trinidad and Tobago, the ABC Islands. And although we've had some locally heavy rain for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and portions of the Dominican Republic the next couple of days, generally speaking, we're going to just see more isolated to scattered rain and nothing extremely concentrated, at least for the next few days ahead. Okay, so that's the situation. About all the talking my jaw can do, to be quite honest. So again, we'll watch this move west with some rain, that potentially developing, but down the road, the Western Atlantic and Gordon back over my shoulder. Friends, I appreciate you. You can find us across all social media, Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. It's mymeteomundo@gmail.com. You like to send me a picture or video. Love the support. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. You have a specific question about the forecast, I'm happy to answer that as well. Have a great rest of your Friday. I'll be back soon with the latest forecast for you right here at Meteo Mundo.